Right, good evening, everyone. So we will start very soon. Let's just allow more members join us. The class is always up to 90 or 100. So just 2 minutes time, by exactly 8:15, we will start. Please confirm you can hear me.
We can hear you, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I can hear you, sir.
We can hear you, sir.
All right. All good. A very warm evening to all of you. I hope we all had a very good day. Please confirm using the thumbs up to affirm that you can hear me and you're ready for us to start. Sultan, Taye, Phillips, Gabriel, Samuel, Paul. All right, I've seen all of you. Thank you very much. So we would start with a short review of what we've done so far. The first class we started with the introduction, and also in that class, I can remember vividly well. The key highlight from that class was that we shouldn't start this new session with the hatred we had for any topic or the course at all. After that, Mr. Phillips, sorry, my colleague, was here on Monday and he took the class with the topic accounting for management, where I'm pretty sure that he introduced accounting, took the line by line steps. He spoke at length, I'm sure, about the various classification of accounting, management account, cost accounting, and differences between financial accounting and management accounting, different levels of information again, tactical, strategic, and operational. And as well, I'm sure he also introduced the concepts of data, information, management control system, accounting systems, management accounting systems. Please let me know that the things I'm saying are not new to you by showing me a thumbs up that you've read up to that point. Okay, brilliant. I would love to know, is there anybody that is on the call today that wasn't on the call on Monday? Do you want to use a thumbs down so I would identify such a person? You are just new to the call. This is your first time. You are okay, Christopher. All right, and Samuel. Gabby, wonderful. We are plenty like this. Very many people didn't join the call. Okay, so based on that, I'll just do a little um, heads down before continuing. So a summary of what we have done is that we've introduced data. That data is the raw material for data processing. So data relates to facts, events, and transactions, and so forth. So when you're talking about data, it's just basic stuffs that they don't really make so much sense except you put them together, except it is processed. Just like we would always say that raw materials are not so useful except it is being processed. So if you are looking at picking up crude oil, for instance, you wouldn't know the enormous items you can derive from crude oil until you process it to have the petrol, the diesel, the kerosene, and the rest of it. So just like our data in the office, the timesheets that we are keeping, the timesheets, the logbook that workers comes to work. When workers come, they just thumbprint to show they came to work by this time every day. At the end of the month, if we are to process the timesheets that we are keeping for every worker that comes to work, we'll be able to know the person that comes to work most early, and then we'll be able to know how many times someone is not present at work. We use it to generate payrolls. We use it for HR purpose. We use it for appraisal. We use it holistically to know compute labor turnover and a lot of things. So data are raw fact that does not make sense until when it is processed. Then information is the processed data. I'm just moving fast. The qualities of a good information, you can use the acronym accurate to know that. I'm sure the tutor must have introduced you to that. Just a quick one. The people that were there. Well, let's use the chat box. What does A stand for? R, accurate. If you are defining the qualities, okay. Bellow, A is accurate. Okay. C, I want to see you typing on the chat box.
See, it's complete.
Complete. I want typing. Use the chat box, please. Use the chat box because there are many,
Cost
and some
effective.
people are overall on the cost effective. Okay, go ahead. I want this is just like let's be sure other people understandability sharing.
Relevance.
Use the chat box. Thank you. Relevance, journal. Thank you. Accessible. Good.
Easy to
So
use.
these are the timely, all good, easy to use as well. So these are the qualities of a good information. For us to say an information is good, if you see your past questions, there are questions that ask you about this. So for you to say that an information is good, it should be timely. It should come on time. Like I shouldn't come to start telling you about strategic financial management when you are going to write management accounting. That information is not coming at the right time. It's not communicated also to the right user. It should be cost effective, all of those. You use that acronym. Most of the things that we would be learning would be introducing you to acronyms so that with ease you'll be able to remember it. Okay. Uh, just to move fast. One of the major things as well that we did in the last class was to differentiate between financial accounting and management accounting. We were able to talk that this one is for internal users, while this one is for external users. The relationship between cost of management accounting, I'm sure the tutor must have also spent time on that. I wouldn't want to take so much time speaking about what we've already done. We will try our best to be keeping the classes without skipping any, and we'll do our best to do a lot of explanation in class. Um, for now, we would encourage you to be taking notes. The class is as important as a physical class. I would always tell students that if you attend the Apex classes necessary, you might not want to attend the physical classes again because it's quite detailed. You take it as serious as it should be. When it's time for classes, you come with your notebook, jot down. When it's time for asking questions, you ask questions. We also have revision classes at the end of the session, at the end of the when after we finish the tutorials. So please, you can take this opportunity as maximize it and make the best use of it. So I'll be moving quite fast to what we have for the day. But more then, I would love to be sure that we are all together and we confirm that I should move. Please, if you want us to continue moving, to move to the topic for the day, use the thumbs up emoji to indicate that. Thank you. All right. So we are looking at sources of data today. Sources of data. So in today's class, our role is to look at the different types of data. In the revision I just did for what we did the last time, I explained to us what data is. Every time you hear about data simply means you will be hearing of different roles, data entry, data analyst, all of them. Data is simply the raw facts that we need to produce information. The raw facts we need to produce information. We cannot produce information without having those raw facts. So we are now looking at where can we find those raw facts? Where can we get the raw facts that would be useful for us to produce information? That is the goal for today's class. We'll be looking at the different types of data, the different sources of data, and how can we source data within the organization? How can we source data outside the organization? And we would look at how data can be classified either between primary and secondary, discrete and continuous, and the rest of it. So the goal for today's class would also look at the various sources of data, whether it is going to be from the government, professional association, financial press. We will finish the chapter by looking at the various sampling techniques. You cannot speak about data without talking about sample, because data comes in its numbers, and you will not be able to work with all except taking samples. Right. So everybody in this class already know what data is. We've said that over and over. Raw facts that are not understood except they are processed. Raw facts that needs to be understood, that needs to be processed to be understood. Raw facts that have little meaning except they are processed. So we can have various examples of data. I've given invoices, timesheets, observations, and the rest of it. So let's start with what are the types of data. Types of data. So we would say that data is basically differentiated or classified as either primary or secondary. Either primary or secondary. When we say data is primary, we are simply saying that those data that are primary are data that are collected for specific purpose. For instance, or put differently, I don't want to use a very big minor words for explanation. Some of us here, we did research in our first degree, first-hand data, the data that you go and got for first-hand, we classify that as being primary. So if you go to use questionnaires to get information directly from somebody, that is, you are the first person, you are the person that went to get it firsthand. I will be using some, you permit me to use some uh, pigeons and the rest of it in the class. You hear that thing people would say, eyewitness, right? Say they don't slap eyewitness eye in no feed talk waiting in IC again. So if we are going like journalists to go get information from eyewitness, so we are going to source for first-hand data. I still have some people's hands up here. Let me confirm if they are okay or they want to say something. Anastasia. Anastasia, you have something to say? The other person is Adegbite. You have something to say? If you don't, please drop the hands. Let's proceed. So we have primary data and secondary data. Primary data as first-hand data. So we would always relate it back to what we did in research. If you are not the first-hand collector of the data that you are not getting directly from the original source is not primary. The one you get from textbooks, already published data, that is classified as being secondary. The data that has already been collected elsewhere, and then you are going to pick from where it has been collected, will be termed as being secondary data. All right. So raw data are primary data which have not been processed at all, put simply. But secondary data are data that they've already been collated, but you just need the information. You need those data to help you do or make more sense to what what you're working on. The second classification of data would be either discrete data or continuous data. Remember, I started the class by saying we are focusing on sources of data, and we've said that sources of data, where can we find data? We started by saying that data can either be the types of data can either be primary or it would be secondary. If it is primary, that means I'm the first-hand collector of the data. If it is secondary, that means this data has already been collected, stored somewhere, and I'm going there to pick it. The next classification of data is discrete or continuous data. Discrete data are data that are finite. That is, they are countable. I know clearly that it will either be 1, 2, or 3, and it has a stop. But continuous data are data that to an extent would be classified as the opposite of being finite. It's continuous. It's infinite, like it is in perpetuity. The numbers keeps on going. I hope we're following. Please use the thumbs up to confirm that you understand what I'm saying so far.
Yes,
And you're
you're
following me
following.
very well. All right,
We are
let's proceed.
following you, sir.
I can give examples of a discrete data to be the number of goals that Chelsea scores. We will say that, oh, Arsenal or maybe Chelsea scored 1, 0, or 2. So it is finite. We cannot come
I
and say
got
that
lost on the way.
Chelsea
Sorry, sir.
scored 1 and a half. Okay. Don't worry, at the point I would always do a recap of what I've done. So we are looking at
Thank you,
discrete
sir.
data
Please,
and
I have a
continuous data.
question.
We started.
I have a question, sir.
Let me just take this. We would always have time for questions. Go ahead. Let me just give you the benefit now. We'll have time for questions. Proceed.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Who is speaking?
Okay, I'm the one speaking. Can I speak, sir?
Okay.
Proceed.
Okay. My question is,
Go ahead, please.
okay, my question is timesheet a primary data or a secondary data?
Timesheet is a primary data.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, as we are proceeding, when you note questions, you can write it out, write it down, and then we'll have time for us to bring it up. We'll have enough time for us to ask all the questions. So, if I should ask, why would we classify timesheet as being a primary data? Why wouldn't we classify timesheet as being a secondary data? Like I know some of us here in our work places, you will have instances where as you're going to work, most organizations now use the thumb printing machine. You just thumb print to tell exactly how you are with the exact time you came in, not the other manual process that you are writing down. Even if it is the manual process, it's the primary data because that's a first hand. We remember the definition I gave. The first hand. I'm using the basic words when giving this explanation. You are the first hand. You are the first hand collector of the data. All right. But if, for instance, we've collated all our data and then we've stored it somewhere, we've produced a textbook or we've produced a book and put it in the library. For instance, we come to say, let's look at the timesheets that the president were during the first democratic rule. That is now going to look at data that has already been collected and kept. But first-hand data is the one that is on spot. You are the first person getting the information. I gave an instance of eyewitness, and I gave an instance reminding us of what we did in school research, questionnaires. Questionnaires are primary data as opposed to information you go to pick in the library, museum, and the rest of it. Those ones are classified as being secondary data. Let's proceed fast. The next item I mentioned is discrete data and continuous data. So discrete data are data that are finite. They can only take on a finite or countable numbers of values within a given range. So when we classify data and say this data is discrete, that means we are certain that we know the numbers. It is either 1 or it is 2. It is 2 or it is 3. It is 4 or it is 5. And I gave an instance that we can classify the number of goals in a match as being a finite data because it's finite discrete data. Discrete data is a finite data because you can count it. So we will always count the number of goals in a match, say 5 goals, 2 goals, and the rest of it. We cannot come and say that Chelsea have goal or 2.5 goal. I don't know who is supposed to be together, and we go. Kindly mute yourself. For not going, please.
Now. Stop for both.
Farabong, please mute yourself. Thank you. Okay, let's continue. The next is continuous data, which can take on any value. They are measured rather than counted. We cannot count, we cannot define the outcome of continuous data, but instead we take measurements. I'll give an example. Continuous data are not finite, like we are not certain. We will now give ranges we are now giving a scale rather than being certain that it is either 2 or it is 3. We would also say that data is either sample data or population data. By sample data, we are saying that this data is as a result of investigating a sample. We all know that a sample is a selection from a population. However, population data arises as a result of investigating the population. So if we say, where did you get this data from? You say, it's a sample data. That means I am getting this data from an already created fraction of a population. So let me give an example. If you go for audits, for instance, in an organization, and then you have up to 5,000 invoice booklets, duplicate invoice booklets given to you, you will not be able to vouch all the 5,000 invoice booklets that is presented to you. So in that case, you take sample. You might take a random sample of 100 out of the 5,000 or 500 out of the 5,000 given to you. So from the 500 that you've selected out as what you want to vouch, any invoice you pick from there is a sample data. But any invoice you pick from the others is a population data. I'm sure that's clear. It can't be simpler. Let's proceed. However, if we want to describe data continuously, we would say that data can either be qualitative or it is quantitative. Let's take a recap of what we've done so far. We've started the class with saying we are looking at sources of data. We refresh our memories with the definition of what data is. That data is a raw fact that needs to be processed. We said that data can take different classifications. We can classify data as being primary or secondary. We can classify data as being discrete or continuous. We can classify data as being sample or population. We can also classify data as being qualitative or quantitative. So if it is quantitative, that means it involves numbers. Data can be quantitative. When data is quantitative, it involves numbers. You can measure it. You have to measure it. So whenever you say number of people that passed on the road, we want to know the number of people. Some offices, some organization keeps a timer, a counter as the people, the number of people that comes into the organization. We every day, at the end of the day, we can keep track and know that. That is a quantitative data. But when we now look at data that we cannot attribute numbers to it, we cannot give speak to it in terms of figures, we will say that those data are qualitative. The color of one's skin, character, the number of people that came in smiling, or say people that were smiling in the organization today, or for instance, we can look at behavior wise, all those numeric informations, people that are happy, or we say happy people. You will not be able to tell people that are happy. I don't know if I ask how many people that are happy in this class. Some people might be carrying smiley faces, but deep down they are not happy. So those are qualitative information. I'm just using this as explanation. So those data are classified as being qualitative data. And at the flip side, data that we can measure are classified as being quantitative data. Let's proceed. Where can we get data from? Where can we get data from? We get data from two major sources, either internal sources or external sources. Data can come from internal sources or external sources. We already know what internal means. Internal is within, while external is outside. So by internal data, we are looking at, is it our accounting records within our organization? Is it our store ledgers, purchases ledgers, general ledgers, or cost ledgers? Payee records, checkbooks, check numbers, check storms, things that are within things that are inside our organization. That is what we would classify as being internal data. Like we mentioned, the timesheets that could be used to link to payroll, um, different rate of staff. You can also start saying where are the employment letters. These are all data that are within the organization. Data that we can produce, movement of people, movement of material, goods received, notes, all those records that are inside our organization. These are all internal sources of data. However, we can also get data from external sources. By external sources, we mean let's go outside the organization. We cannot say we have all that we need inside. So based on that, let's go outside and check out the data that would be useful to us outside. So by going outside, we can go to get from primary sources. That is, we can go to take samples, interviews from our questionnaires, from our suppliers outside, competitors, the public, and the rest of it. Secondary sources could be let us go read books outside, articles, written reports, and the rest of it. So that way, we'll now tell that we have this or that. So all of these have advantages and disadvantages. One major advantage of the secondary data is that it is cheap. Secondary data is cheap compared to, it is not costly compared to primary data. While secondary data at the flip side have a disadvantage that you are going to depend on information that have been collected by another person. You do not know the inadequacies or the limitations that were placed when the person took the data. All of us here, we did research now in our first degree. You wrote limitation of your research work, and I'm sure you must have said cost, time, this and that were limitations that you couldn't do an adequate research. So if somebody wants to come and depend on the research work that you did as a secondary data, your research work now becomes a secondary data for the person because it has already been collected and documented somewhere. So there is a disadvantage that whatever limitation that was placed that you encountered while you were carrying out your research, or it's automatically transferred to whoever uses your work. And we can't also talk about the accuracy or reliability of the information that the person is that you provided. So secondary data has those limitations. All right, I would love to take a pause and confirm that we are following me very well. Please use a thumbs up to indicate that you're following me.
We are following, sir.
All right, all good.
We are
All
following you,
good.
sir.
Let's proceed.
We are with you, sir, Mr. Obo.
All right, let's proceed. Let's move yourself and proceed.
Well done, sir.
So, despite the fact that secondary data has a lot of limitations, some secondary data from different places would be regarded as being very valuable for the organization. And I would love to mention some secondary data that are very valuable. Secondary data from the government, secondary data from the banks, secondary data from newspapers, trade journals would be classified as being valuable secondary data. In audits, you people would eventually do audits at the skill level. You would understand that in audit we would give more reliability. We would say that third party informations are more reliable than um, information you get from the organization. So if for instance I come to your organization and then you tell me that I've spent 500 billion naira in 2 months, I would not believe you. Audit says we should be professionally skeptical. So the only place that I'm going to believe you is from your bank statement. So That's why we have to place emphasis here to mention that though we have said something that secondary data has limitations, but from selected organization from different sources, information from these sources are more valuable, are extremely valuable. So we would say information, let me repeat myself, information from the government. So it's just like we have evidence that the government gave a demand notice, a tax authority gave a demand notice, and then the client is saying, yeah, I got demand notice to pay 200 million tax liability or somewhat. So that information is valuable. You cannot say that it still has a limitation. Banks, I've explained how bank statements plays a major role. So you cannot say, yeah, it is not valuable because it has limitation. No, newspapers, before informations are published there, to an extent, there are levels of credence to it. Tax trade journals as well. Okay, government statistics most times is what we depend on. Yes, if you like it, you take it or not. When the Bureau for Statistics says inflation is 21%, you have to accept it. Yes, you have to accept it. All right. So we have to depend on that. And that is always one yardstick that organization will use to increase cost. For instance, recently in my organization, the auditors wanted to increase cost and said they're increasing cost because of inflation. And I'm like, why do you want to do 30% increase in your professional fees when meanwhile the inflation rate is not up to 30%? Reduce it to what the statistics like the NBS said about inflation, and based on that, they are professionals. They reduce it, so they instead of them taking the inflation, because their reason for increase in the audit in the fees was based on inflation. So if you are saying you're increasing fees based on inflation, what is the inflation rate? Drop it exactly there. Don't take it higher. So I'm just giving an example where you depend on this secondary data. For instance, the government official data about official statistics from the government, parastatals and establishment would always be dependent on. You don't have an option. Banks as well. When banks give publication, I've said that. Financial newspapers as well. And for instance, our routine icon journal is also a very major source of a dependable source of information. The internet as well is a source of information. We already know that the internet is a global network connecting millions of computers. If you are asked to talk about the internet, these are other sources of data. The internet is a global network connecting millions of computers. The internet allows a lot of computers to send and receive information. And we cannot speak about the internet without speaking about website, which is a collection of images, text that provide information which may be viewed by the World Wide Web. So this is also another place that information exists, data exists specifically. And we all know where we can get all of this from. At this point, I would love to take a little pause and ask a few questions. I would love us to give me an answer. Let's listen. Which of these would you classify as a secondary source of data? Which of these would you classify as a secondary source of data? Would you classify economic trends published by the government as a secondary source of data? Would you classify the Singapore Business Times as a source of data, as a secondary source of data? And will you also classify historical records of canteen costs in a hospital as a secondary source of data? Will you also classify data collected by survey when we launch a new product as a secondary source of data? Of all these that I've mentioned, for instance, I say A, economic trends published by the UK government. B, Singapore Business Times. C, historical records of canteen costs. D, data collected from survey when a new product is launched. Which of these are secondary sources of data? Love us to use the chat.
Oh,
All of them.
no, the answer is D.
If you are saying all of them,
The answer
let's
is
not.
D. We cannot classify D as secondary source of data.
The answer is D. Singapore.
Okay, you take turns to speak. I would identify you. Okay, Sultan. Well, please remark. Thank you. Sultan, go ahead.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Proceed.
Okay, so we select. Is it possible for us to select more than one option?
Yes, you can select more than one option.
Okay, I can say A, B, and
As secondary sources of data. All right. Deborah, let me hear from you.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Okay, they are all sources, secondary sources of data, except for the last one, which is the survey gotten from cost of opening campaign in hospital, because that one you are getting in primarily, but others are all secondary. They are all gotten by someone else, and you're trying to use them. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. Samuel, do you have something different to say? Please proceed. Samuel.
Okay, so the first and the second option are secondary source of data.
All good. All right. So let me say this. ADA Khanem, let me allow you to speak, please.
Good evening. I want to say that they are all secondary sources of data, including the last one gotten by survey. Why I say is a secondary source is because the survey was not carried out by the user of that data, or by the intended user of the data. That is why I think it's a secondary source. But to the users, it's a primary source. But to the person, the third party person trying to use it, it's a secondary source. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brilliant. I think you all deserve claps. I'm the one clapping for you now. All right, thank you. Thank you for participating. Okay. So that's it. It showed that we have followed everything that we've said here. I'm going to speak on each of them clearly. So the economic trends published by the UK government, the Singapore Business Times, are both sources of sources of secondary data, and we would classify that as being external sources of data. Historical expenditure about our canteen cost. Remember, I mentioned something about that we have kept records of how much we are spending in the canteen per staff. I'm going to also say that is a secondary source of data because it is an historical record. Remember, I gave that instance that anytime data has been collected and kept somewhere, and then you are now coming to use what has been collected or what has been collected, kept somewhere to use, that is secondary. However, when we say data that you collect from survey during launching a new product. We are looking at the present now. How do we get data when we launch a new product? We either do personal interviews with the users. Is a direct, you are the first person, you are the first collector, you are the eyewitness now. You are hearing from the horse's mouth directly. How is this product? You are giving them a questionnaire. What would help you know if this is secondary or data? The use of past tense, the use of any word that indicates that this was already collected and kept somewhere would give you hints to show that we are not talking about the present. The primary data is present data. Primary data is present data. Secondary data are data, are historical data, past tense data is already prepared as a result of what has happened in the past, and then they are just making it available for you. All right, I'm sure that irons that out very well. Okay, I will proceed quickly to sampling. Data are often collected from a sample, or it could be from we would say, I define that data can be sample data or population data. So data are often collected from a sample rather from a population. Most times because a population would be too enormous that you would not be able to take the whole population. So if the whole population is examined, then we would now say that you were doing a census. In many cases, before we say we are working with population data, that means the population was not so much. And it will not cost us plenty money for us to work with the whole population. But most times, the population might be too much for us, and we will need to reduce the costs, reduce the time, reduce the energy, the manpower, and whatsoever you would start counting on. Based on that, there is need for sampling. And because there is need for sampling, we would have to learn about sampling methods. How can we identify the best set, the best subsets, and the best, you can use words like strata of the whole population for you to focus on. Different sampling methods exist. Let me take a pause and ask a question here. As we are taking this particular topic, sources of data, how many of us remember the things that we did in our research in our first degree? If you remember, use the thumbs up. These things are not strange for you. Use the thumbs up if you can remember all these things relate to the things you did in your first degree. So, again, if you did not like this particular topic in your first degree, even if you did not do accounting, it was whatever course you did, I'm sure you, if it was in the factor of management sciences, you did you did population, you did research, yes. So if you hated research, this is the main thing I said earlier in the last class, that some students, because they did not like the research lecturer, research methodology. Thank you, Mohammed. You did not like the woman, or you did not like the man, the way the man was carrying his face, or he was always shouting in class. Whenever you hear about sampling, population, source data, all these things, that hatred, you just bring it back again. Please keep that hatred behind. This is ICANN. ICANN is so innocent to come and carry the hatred you had over here. All right, so let's proceed. Sampling methods. We would have probability sampling method and non-probability sampling methods. By probability sampling method, I would just love to take a pause here and let me ask: is it right for chartered accountants? You people are about to become chartered accountants. Would you think? Do I know some people would see this as being faith related or somewhat? But I know. Let me just ask. Some people might answer. How many of us do raffle tickets during events? Use thumbs up. You go for a party and then they are doing raffle tickets, and then you also participate in it. Do you think it is right for you to be doing that as accountants when you know that most times the probability for you to win is very, very far because this involves chances? I just want to relate what I want to speak now to that. So, for instance, if I take, we are up to 92, we are almost 100 plus on the call now. But some people are streaming live on YouTube. If we take a sample and I say, I want to, working with 100, people should buy raffle tickets. And then we have just 3 gifts to give the grand prize, first prize, second prize, and third prize. The probability that I'm going to pick your raffle ticket, or I'm going to the probability that it's going to clock and stop at your ticket number is so slim because I want to pick just 3 out of 100. So put differently, my sample size has been reduced to only 3 in a population of 100, which makes it very narrow. Thank you, Paul, for you to say that the likelihood of you making errors, picking, or the likelihood of you arriving at a wrong answer is so wide. So probability sampling methods are those sampling methods known as chance, known that we would say is just related to chances. The chances that members of the population will be appearing in the sample. That is probability sampling methods. So when we say probability sampling method, we are looking at the sampling method in which there is a known chance for each member of the population to appear in the sample. So the likelihood that every member of the population, every race, every ethnic group and the rest of it, that tendency that no how, you go show, your face fit show if you are show, no show for the sample. All right. So different probability sampling methods would be maybe random sampling. We'll call it random sampling, stratified sampling. You can still remember all of that.
Please, can you take the definition again?
Probability sampling methods. Simply the sampling method that gives every member of the population the chance of appearing in the sample. The sampling method that gives every member of the population the chance of appearing in the sample. Examples of probability sampling method: random sampling, stratified random sampling, systematic sampling, multi-stage sampling, and cluster. I'll take time and explain each of them. Random sampling, stratified random sampling, systematic, multi-stage, and cluster. At this point, let me just confirm. If you feel the class is moving very slow, use the thumbs down emoji. If you feel it is okay, the space it is going, use the thumbs up so that I know if to make it better, if to make it faster. I mean, okay. Funmi, Shaun, happy. All right. I've not seen anyone indicating it is very slow. All right, then let's proceed. In that case, I was feeling I'm being too slow and taking trying to ensure that I'm not moving fast. All right, if that's the case, then the pace is fine. Let's proceed. So when we say random sampling, it requires the construction of a sampling frame. A sampling frame is a numbered list from all the items in the population. Don't worry. I'll use a good example to explain random sampling. So, for example, if you want to take a random sample in a library of books, it will not be good enough for you to pick them off the shelves, even if you are picking them at random. This is because the books that were loaned out, or probably you say the books that are not there at the moment you were picking, will not have the chance of being chosen. You will either have to make sure that all the books are on the shelf at the same time before you start doing your um, sample taking, or you find some other way of ensuring that the books, every member, all the books in the library have a chance. So in that case, you might use the library index card. I hope anybody here that did library science, or you have an in short, I know all of you've picked the library book before and you've seen the library index card there. So what we are saying in essence is that oftentimes before we do random sampling, we try to create a sampling frame to ensure that every member of the population have a chance. Like, for instance, I want to pick one out of 100 people. I should make sure I make the 100 to be around at the time I'm taking the random sample. Or if I cannot make the 100 around at the same time, make an avenue for every member of the population to have that chance of being selected. So the random sampling is not necessarily a perfect sample. For example, you might pick what you believe. Okay. Hello. Please, do you want me to sell? Thank you, please. You might pick what you believe to be a complete and find out that the item isn't there. So for instance, that we use the library index. Maybe the book stolen completely, and then that was among what we selected. So sampling has its own risks. By random sampling, we are saying giving everybody a chance, equal chance. So if we are picking in geometric progression or arithmetic progression, skip every two, pick the next. In 2, 4, 6, 8, like that. That is what random sampling implies. Like, let us create a sampling frame. After creating a sampling frame, we have every member of the population having equal chance of being picked. So if I have like I have 100 people on this call, for instance, I want to pick a sample. What I'll do is for every 5, I pause and pick one among the 5. For every 5, I pause, I pick one among the 5, like that, like that. So in that case, I have created a sampling frame and I'm picking thereof. So in the members of the population have a chance of being selected. If they not select, your life not the life no balance. Random sampling is very interesting. All right. That of probability method, random sampling.
Can you please mute yourself, Bumi? Can you please mute yourself?
Please, everybody mute yourself so that you can follow what I'm saying very well. I don't know. Taiwo, Wunmi, please do mute yourself. You are discussing behind the class. I'm sure you can hear me.
Sir,
Yes,
put
please.
on a platform so I can put everyone that is disturbing the class.
Okay, you have to start up him. I'll start him up again. I think she must have forgotten she's in class completely. Okay, I'll get I'll get the hosting rights and do that right away. Okay, Taiwo is back. Thank you, Taiwo. Taiwo, please mute Wumi. Wumi is kind of I think she's not aware she's still in class. She must have been distracted. Thank you. I'm sure we're fine now. Are we? Can we proceed? The class is supposed to start by 10 o'clock, so we have to move quite fast to ensure we are.
Can you remove the link of this line chat?
Taiwo, please. Yeah, I can see you on the call. I don't have the hosting rights. Taiwo, please. Guys, muted. Whoever is not muted. Okay. Thank you. I think it's fine now. All right, let's proceed. The next is the stratified random sampling. Would this work this way? Can we have one house?
Yes, I've removed her. I've removed her from the call.
Thank you very much.
You can write them.
The stratified random sampling is a variation of on this random sampling method. So what happens here is that the stratified random sampling is a method of sampling which involves dividing the population into stratas or categories, and random samples are taken from each stratum or category. For instance, if we want to talk about management accountants in Nigeria, we'll start saying who are the management accountants in PLCs, listed companies. Who are the management accountants in LTDs, limited liability companies? Who are the management accountants in all the small enterprises? When we finish taking the number of management accountants in each of these strata, we would now come to pick from the individual. Okay, PLCs, all the listed companies, we have up to 500 listed companies, and we have 500 management accountants. We have 2,000 limited liability companies, and we have 1,000 management accountants. We now start taking a sample from each of those stratum that we have created. In that case, the PLC management accountants will have a chance. The limited liability company management accountants will have a chance. The small enterprises management accountants will have a chance. So everything about probability sampling method is that it creates an avenue for everybody to be selected into the sample. Random sampling, remember we were saying, let's be sure that all the population members are there, and then we pick them randomly. That's by creating a sampling frame. After creating a sampling frame, you're picking accordingly. But in stratified random sampling, we say break the population into groups. Put differently, break the population into groups or stratum, and then use the stratums that you have created to pick samples from each of them. So one advantage here of the stratified sampling is that every representative, at least in head, could tell and say, no how, member of my constituents could they inside this thing, rather than the other one that they'll just pick randomly. So creating stratums would make people from the north, the west, the east, and the rest of it. Just like saying in Nigeria now, let us pick five people randomly in Nigeria. And then somebody would just pick five people. But in stratified sampling, we are saying, oh, there are 5 geopolitical areas, or how many geopolitical area do we have in Nigeria? Let's now pick people from each geopolitical area, from the south, from the southeast, from the southwest, from the north, like that. Let us now pick. So everybody now will now have a feel. At least my person is there. I hope we are following what I'm saying. Please, if we are following, use the thumbs up to indicate. All right, let's proceed. Next is moving forward to looking at systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is a method that works by selecting every numbered item after a random starts. So for instance, if we have decided to select 20 items from a population of 800, we would now say number 20. If we are picking from a population of 800, we want to select 20 items. We'll just say 800 divided by 20. And then we have a way and start saying, after 20, the number 20 is the first item. Number 40 is the next item. You keep on picking like that at systematic intervals. For instance, if I want to pick, let me use this, a smaller number. Out of 20, I want to pick just 5. I'll just say 20 divided by 5. So I will now say 1, 2, 3, 4, number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I pick like that. Every systematic, each time it gets to that number at the same sampling interval. That is, the sampling interval is a term that is associated with systematic sampling. At the same sampling interval, I now pick the item, the number. That way also, it still gives people a fair chance. Please, I hope we are following very well so that you will be able to tell me which of the sampling method you prefer, you deem as being the best. The multi-stage sampling is a probability. All of these I'm giving are examples of probability sampling method. Remember, we started with saying random sampling is an example of a probability sampling method, stratified random sampling, systematic sampling. Now we are looking at multi-stage. Don't worry, before we end the class, I'll do a short review, a recap on each of them. Now the multi-stage sampling is the probability sampling method, which involves dividing the population into a number of subpopulations and then selecting small samples of this subpopulation at random. I will carefully have to differentiate between these and the stratified sampling because it will look confusing. So each subpopulation is then further divided, and then a small sample is again selected at random. This is done repetitively, but in stratified sampling, it is not done repetitively. After we've broken down into stratum, we just pick one from each stratum and then we proceed. But the multi-stage sampling, from the name multi-stage, you break the population into a subpopulation. You break subpopulation into another sample again, like that, continuously. So an example I would say maybe if, for instance, in Nigeria, we divide Nigeria into number of areas, a small sample of these areas is selected at random. Each of these areas selected is now further subdivided into smaller units again and again and again and again. Okay, let me use, for instance, the geopolitical area we started using. We've divided Nigeria into geopolitical area. And then the next thing is we've now had southwest, southeast, and the rest of it. Now inside the south again, we've gone further to have states inside south. And after states inside south, they never do us. We go further to have local governments inside south. And we move forward again to have maybe say wards inside the local governments. And from wards inside the local government, we move forward to have villages like that. So we might choose a random samples of eight different areas from each of the major population that we have selected. And we now come to say, if we've made 8 sub populations, each of the sub populations that we've taken, we pick one per person again. And then from the one, all the sub populations before we now arrive at the sample that we want to take. However, in stratified sampling, just one stratum, you pick one from each of them. Not doing a multi-stage. Here is multi-stage. You use the name multi-stage to remember what it implies. The last here is called the cluster sampling. Cluster sampling is also a probability sampling method. But however, it is a non-random sampling method. It is a probability sampling method, but it's not random. By random, we are always saying picking at intervals or as you wish. Now, when we say cluster sampling, it involves selecting one definable subsection of the population as the sample. So, for instance, the pupils in, or maybe say the students in a school might be taken as a cluster to represent all the students in a particular country. So we can just come and say in Delta State, the students in the student writing ICANN there should represent the whole ICANN students in the country. So cluster sampling is, let us identify a group in the population and we just pick that group to represent the entire population. So that is why we are saying it is not a random sampling method. You don't move around to pick randomly, but you just identify a group. A cluster is a group. So you just pick a group to represent the whole. It is not expensive to operate because you will just look at the group that looks as if they represent the whole, and then you just pick them. Right. Let's take a very short review of what we've done so far. We started by saying that this class will be focused on the sources of data. And we reminded ourselves that data would be seen as being raw facts that needs to be processed. And we went forward to say that data can be primary or secondary. When data is primary, it is collected specifically first hand for the purpose of a survey. But when data is secondary, it is collected from another place for other purposes. Put differently, primary data are first hand data. They are fresh data. Primary data are fresh data. They are present data. Secondary data are historical data. They are not fresh. All right, let's proceed. We also say that data can be discrete or continuous. Discrete data are finite. You can tell it's either 1, 2, 3. Continuous data are, you cannot give a specific numbering to it. They are ever going, and we can term it as being infinite. Data can be internally sourced or externally sourced. Internally sourced is within the organization, externally sourced is outside the organization. We said that the major sources, the main sources of secondary data that are valuable will be data from the government, banks, newspapers, trade journals, etc. And we'll move forward to say that data would always be collected from samples because populations are always very wide and we cannot examine the whole population. If we need to examine the whole population, then that is a census, and it would involve a case where you spend so much money, but because we wouldn't want to spend so much money, we would always take samples, and based on that, sampling simply means taking a fraction of a population to focus on, taking a fraction of a population to focus on. And sampling can either be done using the probability sampling method, or the non-probability sampling method. By probability sampling method, we say it is the method that gives every member of the population a chance of being selected. So we now mention that there are different probability sampling method, random sampling method, stratified sampling method, systematic sampling method, multi-stage sampling method, and the cluster sampling method. Let me be sure if people are following me. I want to get thumbs up because I'm winding up so that I have time for questions. All right. Brilliant. It shows we are all together. Okay. And we've explained clearly what each of it represents. Random sampling would always require you creating a sampling frame, and a sampling frame is a numbered list of all the population. After you've created a numbered list of all the population, it's just to ensure that the entire population is there, and then you just pick at random without any particular specific method. Whenever you create a specific method of every number 10 I pick, that is now systematic. You have created a system. When you now say I'm picking from the first 5, I pick 1 out of the 5, that is now stratified. When you now say out of the first 5, I'll break it down again further and break it down again further, that is now a multi-stage. But when you just pick a group of 5 out of the population to represent the whole, that becomes a cluster. Let me say that again. Random sampling implies just like saying children will just close their eyes and pick things randomly. That is random sampling, where you just ensure first all the members of the population are there, and then you give everybody a chance without any method, without any every number five I'm picking. No, 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 no. Get all the population ready, and then you just pick at random without a specific pattern. The meaning of random selection means I don't have a pattern. I don't have a defined pattern in which I'm doing this. It's just some people will say as the spirit leads. Now, when you create a pattern, say every number five I'm picking, that is a systematic sampling. Because you remember when I gave that explanation, I say if I have a population of 800 and then I want to pick 20 items, I first of all want to say to 800 over 20. Now, so I'm picking on every number that is systematic sampling. When I'm doing stratified random sampling from the population, I create stratums. I create different stratums. I can create every 10, every 10, every 10. And then I come and pick one out of the 10, pick one out of the 10, pick one out of the 10. But if I'm doing this, after I have created different subpopulations, remember the choices of words. Stratified sampling calls it stratums, but in multi-stage sampling, I call it subpopulations. After I created a subpopulation, I'm now coming to make a further reduction from a subpopulation to another sub. You people would do eventually, you do consolidated accounts. Some of us that did accounting, it's already related to us. You would do what is called a subsidiary, sub-subsidiary, sub-sub-subsidiary, like that. All right, I've spent so much time there. That's multi-stage sampling. And then the last is cluster. Cluster simply implies that you are automatically picking a group of the population to represent the whole. And then lastly, the non-probability sampling method is a sampling method that in which the chance of every member of the population appears to be unknown. For example, I just do a quota. Here, everybody does not have that clear chance. I'm just picking a quota to represent. I just pick a quota, maybe 5 people. Like I said, I started the session with introducing raffle draw and the rest of it. Everybody does not always it would not have a chance in raffle draw if you are only giving 3 prizes. The only time that you might start looking at considering other people is when you have a whole lot of consolidation prizes. Okay, you must be aware of the characteristics, advantages, and disadvantages of each of the sampling methods that we've learned. Once data has been collected, they need to be presented and analyzed. So based on what we've done, I know that all of us here can list at least 4 main sources of secondary data if we are asked. And we can talk about the advantages of in primary data over secondary data if we are also asked. We can also differentiate or classify data as being primary or secondary. We can at the same time tell if the simple random sampling gives everyone a chance or not. And then we can also answer questions if at all we are asked. about sources of data. That being said and done at this point, I would love to take a pause and allow the participants to ask questions, give comments, and we learn together. Thank you very much for paying attention. Thank you, Taye. Thank you, Lamide. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. So let me look at the info message. Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Secondary data. What's the difference between secondary data and external data? Okay, we are saying that external data. Ruth, that's your question. Okay, let me bring it to the class. Who can quickly tell us that? I shouldn't do the talking at this point. The difference between secondary data and external data. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Bello, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. Okay. Okay. Primary data. These are the data that are specific in purpose. They are first-hand data, like those that you are the first person to got. Yes, they are original source, the original source of data. Also, secondary data. These are already being collected. These are the data that are being collected. Thank you.
Another person. Any other person that has something? Anastasia. Yes, please. Who else?
Okay, sir.
Mhm.
Yes, sir. Secondary data are mostly expressed with past tense, while primary data are present tense.
You know the question the person asks. I want to so you get it quite right. Ruth,
Okay, is it
the difference between secondary data and external data.
external? I didn't get that.
And external data. Anybody that can answer that before I'll take it. Do we
All
have
right.
anyone? Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
sir.
Ola, go ahead.
Okay, to my own best of knowledge, from the note you give to us, when we talk about secondary data, these are just types of data, which is primary and secondary data, discrete and infinite, and quantitative and not quantitative. Those are types of data. Why external? This external and internal are sources of data. So there are two different things. So external, we're talking about external data. These are sources of data. Why types of data are primary and secondary. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. So I want to ask just quickly, can external data be primary or can external data be secondary? Can we have an instance where external data are primary? Can we also have an instance where external data are? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Oluwaleka,
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. External data
Yes,
can be
it's
primary.
possible.
give me an example, please.
Questionnaire.
Example,
Questionnaire.
interview.
Okay. So now, Ruth, I'm just giving a broader view of your question so you understand that when we say that data are external, the data is external data, that means we are getting it outside the organization. External data can either be a primary data or a secondary data. You get. It's just that with the emphasis when you're speaking external is outside. It's not within, it's not inside the organization. It's not coming from within, it's coming from outside. So data that we get from outside can either be primary or secondary. It's not necessarily or compulsory that we say that all external data are secondary. No, not all external data are secondary. All external data are not secondary. We can have instances where we get primary data outside. So the emphasis is when we say data is external, that means it's coming from outside. But when we say secondary data, we are relating it with primary data in the sense that are we collecting it during survey? Is it fresh? I think I use that fresh and old or historical. I hope that answers you. Ruth, please, if that answers you, use the thumbs up to confirm that. All right, brilliant. Ruth, are you on the call? I've not seen your thumbs up. I want to confirm you. Or you unmute. Okay, yeah, brilliant. I've seen you. Okay, the next in-call message, in-call question there is I have other messages here. Okay, I've explained that. Please can you come again on non-probability sampling method? Non-probability sampling method does not give members of the population an opportunity. It's operating like a judgmental sampling where you just pick a quota and then you proceed. All right. What's the topic for today? I joined late. We are looking at sources of data. External data. Okay, this is an explanation. External data are data source outside from organization. Okay. So I want to know if we want to take the IT part of the course first. Okay, we are following the course structure. So the next class now will be course classification. So we are just following the way the course is structured, not that we are taking the IT part of the class first. So the next class, Mr. Phillips will just be taking accordingly what is the next topic from the course structure. Not that we are taking only IT. It's just coincidental that this topic now is IT related. Good. All right, you have a question? Ukete, please unmute and speak.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for the lecture. So I want to ask, this systematic sampling method, you made mention of a population of 800 and then like a sample of 200. So I want to ask, if we are given something like a population of 800, but the sample is like maybe 17, like an odd number, how do we go about it, please?
Okay, you are given a sample of out of 800 is not an even number that you have to take
Yes,
from.
the sample is not an even number, but the population is even.
What we'll do is you have to take it to the nearest whole. Like I gave the example, 800, and we are talking about a sample of 20. You are dividing and picking the numbered items. Whatsoever is your number. So 800 over 20 in the example I gave. So you are taking it in the sampling intervals of 40. So the same thing is what you would do. 800 over say 19, for instance. What we do by that division is to create a sampling interval, and you are picking every sampling interval. Once you get up to your sample, you don't pick again. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
I hope that makes you clear. So if I want 15 items, and then I am able to pick the numbering does not give me exactly 15. It gives me like 14. So I'll just take the next numbering behind it to complete the 15. That's to
So
make
are we
up
to
my.
take a greater number or a lesser number now in this case?
It's a what? Okay, let's take the example you gave. 800 over 17 gives you what?
Sorry?
Let's use the example you gave. Was it 200 you gave, or what was your population and what was the sample size from what you gave? From the example you
The
gave.
population size is 800 and the sample is 19.
So 800 over 19.
That is 42 plus 42 point something, 42.105.
So it's just 42 you pick now.
Okay.
That you just walk.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Do we have any further consent? Otherwise, we'll call it a wrap. Let's have comments on the class. How did the class go? What else can we do to make it better? I'll appreciate that before we end it. Okay, I'm listening. You can unmute everyone.
Good evening, sir. And I really want to appreciate you for making the class a very interactive one. I enjoyed it. Thank you, sir.
All right, you're welcome. Any other person? Just one more.
Yes,
One
sir.
more and we are done.
You are,
Good evening, sir.
you are very patient with the way you are teaching us, and that's very good.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. All right, that's fine. So please look up for our next class. I have a lot of messages on the group. Thank you very much, Prosper, Taye, Ofo, John, all of you. Shaun, I can see all your messages. So thank you. You look up for the next class on Monday with Mr. Phillips. Please kindly read up. The best thing that can happen to you is to enter the exams hall well prepared. And the best time is now. There is no best time for you to start this class, this preparation. Please make the best use of the time you have now. I would always tell people that there is no ICANN exams that nobody passed. That has never happened. For every ICANN exams that is set, we would always have people that pass. So based on this, please, you should always strive to be among the people that are going to pass the diet. So what are the things that people that want to pass are doing? They are creating time. One of my mentors told me, you respect ICANN to pass ICANN. Give ICANN the required time. There is nothing that it's so difficult when we dedicate time to it, do the practice and the rest of it. Like I said in the introductory class, don't decide on the topics you choose to know and the topics you choose not to know. Every topic is important. Like if you join that class, I showed us the syllables, and I told you, if you are now saying I don't like this topic, and that topic is like 20% of the entire syllabus, that means you want your exams to be marked over 80 instead of over 100, because everything that they'll set belonging to that 20%, you will not pay attention. You won't know it because you don't know that topic. So give all the attention that you can to all the topics, and I will appreciate. So I've had someone suggesting that we should share screen in the next class. I will consider that. I like that you listen to feedback. Ask us if you feel you're moving slow. Okay, thank you. You are natural. All right, all right. Thank you very much. So at this point, we'll call it a wrap. People are asking for notes. We would make that available. We are, however, quite careful of giving you. Anyways, would make a note available for you. We'll make a note available for you people so that you would go through it. It's a wrap from this side. I'm appreciating you. This is me clapping to you. Clapping for you for creating time to attend the class. I wish you the very best in your exams. See
Thank you
you
very much,
becoming
sir.
my professional. Bye bye. Good night.
Bye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night. Good night, sir.
Hello, sir.